So the Professional Golfers Association of America is the latest organization to distance itself from President Trump after it announced that it will no longer host its championship at his New Jersey golf course next year. Blue Cross Blue Shield and the Marriott hotel chain were among the first businesses that said that they will stop company donations to lawmakers who opposed the Electoral College vote after the domestic terrorism at the Capitol last week. This comes as flags at the White House were finally lowered to half-staff Sunday after a second Capitol police officer died. Paula Reid is following the latest from the White House, and she is joining us now. Paula, just what's happening at the White House in the Trump administration's final full week in office? He does have some things planned on his schedule that we're aware of. How are they preparing, though, for a potential impeachment fight or perhaps the use of the 25th Amendment, particularly when we're keeping in mind that a number of people have already left the administration?
Many people have already left the administration, and Marie, you're absolutely right. And CBS News has learned that the president is here at the White House, but he's mostly alone, surrounded by just a few advisors, including his chief of staff, Mark Meadows, and his senior advisor and son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Now, part of their effort moving forward is they're trying to change the conversation. We expect that we may hear from the president today some remarks, again, trying to shift attention away from the events of Wednesday onto other topics that may resonate, at least with some Republicans, including just their arguments against big tech, these claims of quote-unquote censorship. Now, there is, though, a realization, according to our reporting, that they could still have to face legal proceedings going forward. We've confirmed that Alan Dershowitz, one of the president's allies, he has been approached to perhaps be on the president's legal team to defend him either in an impeachment proceeding or other legal proceeding. But he has said that he doesn't actually think there's going to be an impeachment trial. Now, some U.S. attorneys, including one asked by NPR, they've been asked, hey, is it possible that the president could potentially face any legal consequences for this? One U.S. attorney gave a pretty open-ended answer, pretty much the standard answer you get from DOJ on anything, which is the facts will dictate that. But of course, Anne-Marie, there are a lot of questions about potential legal consequences the president could face after office, not just for this, but potentially in New York. And that's going to have to be something that the Biden administration is really going to have to think about, whether they want to pursue anything at a federal level. Of course, they cannot dictate what happens at the state level. But when it comes to federal charges, that's not something, when it comes to the president, that would just be in the hands of a U.S. attorney. That would have to be a decision made in conjunction with the Attorney General and likely the president and or vice president.
So we know that Nancy Pelosi is preparing an ultimatum for the vice president to consider the 25th Amendment or they will start impeachment proceedings. Yeah. What do we know about the relationship between the president and the vice president at this point? We know that the vice president has a coronavirus task force meeting that typically happens at the White House. The last I heard, though, these two men had not talked directly for quite a while.
That's right, Anne-Marie. We have to remember the vice president has really been the president's most loyal supporter. No matter what the president was going through, what he was saying, what he was doing, what controversy or legal proceedings swirled around this White House, the vice president was always there in lockstep with the president. Throughout the coronavirus pandemic, the vice president has been the one who has had to go and sort of clean up rhetorically or otherwise a lot of things that the president has said. But he has always been loyal and supportive of the president. Even in his darkest days, the president was headed to the vice president's the house for dinner. He's really his closest ally and supporter. But the two men have not spoken since Wednesday, CBS News has learned, and that's even as the vice president is facing death threats. So that gives you a sense of the tension between these two men. The president's feeling that if he did not help him through the Electoral College proceedings, and of course now on this 25th Amendment question, it's not expected that the vice president will go along with that. But the president does feel somewhat betrayed by his number two.
Yeah, well, the president's supporters outside of the Capitol building chanting "Hang Mike Pence" can't help at all. Social media has been a key part of the president's daily operations. How has he reacted now that he has been banned from Twitter, from Facebook, from Instagram? Parler is now offline because Amazon severed its relationship with perhaps the only platform that was left for the president. Do we know just how he's reacting, how he's spending his time?
Well, it's a lot quieter here, Anne-Marie. I will say we don't hear from the president as much. This was his preferred method of communication. I mean, he credits Twitter with helping him win the White House in 2016. He had nearly 89 million followers, and he expected this was also a platform that he would be able to bring with him when he leaves the White House to continue to retain this bully pulpit. Now, while he's here at the White House, of course, he can just step into the briefing room and be instantaneously broadcast around the world. So it appears that he wants to be able to talk, of course, without having to face any questions about the events of the past few weeks and arguably the past few months. The president initially did try to go around his @RealDonaldTrump account Twitter ban by going to the official account that he has use of. It was passed down to him from the Obama administration. It's @POTUS, obviously standing for @President of the United States. He tried to respond there with a lengthy statement, but Twitter deleted those and said that going forward, that account and use of that account will be limited. The president has also lost one of his primary campaign accounts, so he really doesn't have a lot of social media platforms, but it's not like the man doesn't have a platform. He's a leader of the free world. He is just yards away from the briefing room, Anne-Marie. Anytime he wants to be heard, he could be.
Thank you for pointing that out, Paula, because certainly we're hearing more and more calls of censorship, and it should be made clear that if the president wants to speak to the American public, he certainly can anytime he wants. Paula,
yes,
thank you so much.
Anne-Marie, and one other thing, the First Amendment arguments, of course, that has to do with the government. Governments cannot sort of censor certain types of speech, most types of speech. Twitter, of course, it's not the government, it's a private company. And many lawmakers who know much better continue to amplify that false claim.
Great point, Paula. Thank you.